Be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and others have greatness thrust upon them. William Shakespeare. It is a pleasure for me today to talk to you about Macbeth. First, a brief introduction. We know that William Shakespeare has many extremely well-known and important works, but what do we know about Macbeth? William Shakespeare's play Macbeth is believed to have been written and first performed around the years 1606 or 1607, and it was first published in the first folio of the year 1623. This tragedy explored themes of ambition, power, guilt, fate, and psychological effects of ambition. It tells the story of Macbeth, whose desire from power leads him to murder. Encouraged by the prophecy of the three witches and manipulated by his wife, he descends into paranoia, tyranny, and madness. The original play consists of 5 acts and is one of the Shakespeare's shortest but most intense tragedies. Now let's talk about the characters. Here I put an image of the main ones, such as Macbeth, obviously, Lady Macbeth, King Duncan, Banquo, Malcolm, Macduff, and the witches. So let's talk about them. Macbeth was a brave Scottish general whose ambition leads him to treachery, murder, and madness. Lady Macbeth was Macbeth's wife, deeply ambitious and manipulative, but later overwhelmed by guilt. The King Duncan was the virtuous and benevolent King of Scotland, murdered by Macbeth. Banquo was Macbeth's friend and fellow soldier, whose descendants are prophesied to be kings. Malcolm, Duncan's son, who flees after his father's death and later returns to fight Macbeth. Macduff, a nobleman who opposes Macbeth and ultimately kills him. And the witches, the supernatural beings who prophesy Macbeth's rise and fall. So now some of the themes that Macbeth presents are ambition and power, guilt and conscience, fate versus free will, and the natural order. In the case of the ambition and power, this one is shown when Macbeth's unchecked ambition leads to his fall. The guilt and conscience in the case of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, who gets haunted by their crimes. The fate versus free will, when the witches predict Macbeth's future, but he chooses his own path. And the natural order, when murdering the king disrupts nature and society. So now let me talk to you about the conflicts. In this tragedy, happens a lot of conflicts, like man versus man, man versus himself, man versus society, man versus supernatural, man versus insanity, and so goes on. So I'm just going to get deep into 3 of these conflicts. So the first conflict, it will be Macbeth versus Lady Macbeth. In this one, Lady Macbeth initially pushes Macbeth to commit the murder of Duncan, and later struggles to cope with the consequences of their actions. Their relationship becomes strained as Macbeth's paranoia and guilt take. Second one is Macbeth versus Duncan. The murder of Duncan is the catalyst for the play's events and the conflicts between Macbeth and Duncan represents the usurpation of the throne and the establishment of a new and unfair order. And the third one, Macbeth versus Macduff. In this case, Macduff represents the forces opposing Macbeth's tyranny and the desire to restore order. Their conflict culminates in a final battle where Macduff kills Macbeth. Now let's talk about the setting. The setting here, in the case of Macbeth, is in the 11th century Scotland with dark castles, battlefields, and supernatural elements, which demonstrate very well the type of language that this play uses. Shakespeare uses a rich and poetic language. He includes blank verse, iambic pentameter, metaphors, and personifications. Here you can see some examples that I found into a YouTube video that explain in a deepest way. At the end of the video, I remember that there's a part that they put more and more acts and scenes of the movies, and it got very related with the original play. And it's a very interesting video that explains very well the iambic pentameter of William Shakespeare. So now let's talk about the plot. The plot of Macbeth happens when Macbeth, spurred by the prophecy and the ambition, murders King Duncan to become king. He spirals into tyranny and paranoia, killing Banquo and Macduff family. The Lady Macbeth is also consumed by guilt and dies, and Macduff and Malcolm lead a rebellion where Macbeth is killed and order is restored. And last but not least, the imagery. The dominant imagery includes blood and guilt, darkness and evil, and the nature disturbed, reinforcing themes of horror, chaos, and inner torment. There is a part that I like in the Act 1, Scene 5, where Lady Macbeth used the animal imagery, and it says something like, "Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it." When she's trying to convince Macbeth to murder King Duncan, she wants him to feign innocence and become, while they plan to murder the king. And it highlights Lady Macbeth's manipulative nature and her desire to deceive others. So thanks for listening. It's truly been great. Macbeth has shown us power, fear, and fate. The day goes on, and more voices yet to hear, so now I yield the stage with joy and cheer. Thank you very much.